page. So I'm very, very excited. One of my Naval Academy brothers that uh, has had a very, very unique pathway and is still kind of getting his feet dirty in the National Football League. Paul Quessenberry is with us. He's currently he's a practice squad player for the New England Patriots. Before that, he was a five-year Marine Corps officer in the United States Marine Corps. A couple different things that we'll talk about with that. Naval Academy football player, 4 years there. I believe he went to NAPS even, so that was a 5-year process. And I was just talking to him off air. Honestly, the idea that a human being can go into Naval Academy football, which is not, we've talked about this before, not the best athletes in the world. We compete against some of the best. We are not the best ourselves. Go out of football altogether for 5 years and come back in and just set your jaw and say, I'm going to make this happen and land a spot on the most storied franchise in the NFL. Still working to get where he wants to get, no question, but it just shows you what's possible out there, man, if you've got resilience and a mindset. And so, hey, Paul, thank you so much for joining the show, man.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me, brother. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. And let's just get right into it. Tell us about your first year in the National Football League. I mean, now to be fair, you have two brothers that are playing. I think once Scott's playing for the Chargers, and then obviously your brother was starting for the Titans in that tough game last week. But that was awesome to watch. I mean, it's crazy. I'll let you tell the story, but kind of an incredible backstory on him as well, and inspirational one, but also like played really, really well. Like made himself some money the last couple of weeks, so that was awesome to watch. But hey, so let's start off. Just tell us about your first year in the NFL. Like, tell us how coming out after the Marine Corps officer, how that was.
Oh yeah, I mean, first year in the NFL. What just happened to be the year of 2020, and we all know that year brought many unexpected factors into play, and my situation kind of gaining my foothold into the NFL, had a lot of nuanced and unorthodox ways to kind of get myself the opportunity. And it was just kind of navigating with all the chaos that 2020 brought to make sure I was doing everything I needed to do to get that opportunity and to stay on the roster for as long as possible.
So Paul, take us through that though. So at one point, right, you woke up in the morning, you're like, I'm going to make this happen. I'm sure you've been thinking about it for a while, but at one point, I mean, I know because you and I have talked about it before, you called me up kind of out of the blue. And I think we were connected by Tyler Stahl, right? And we were,
yeah.
And we started talking, and you just told me flat out, like, hey, I'm going to take X amount of years or X amount of months, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. I'm throwing everything else in the fire. Like, this is happening. Like, how did that thought process go for you? Because that's the entrepreneurial spirit right there, right? We talk about athletes being their entrepreneurs, their own brand, like living embodiment right here.
Yeah. So like you said, I had been thinking about it for a while, for a couple of years prior to me actually getting the opportunity to play. I had pretty much made my mind up that this was going to happen. And it started back in, I want to say it was 2018, when the Marine Corps comes out with a career designation board. And what that means to the listeners who aren't familiar with the Marine Corps is, the Marine Corps reaches out to its young junior officers and says, like, hey, we want you to stick around. So, please say yes or decline. And by declining, it means you are going to be getting out at the 5-year mark. And, that was kind of the point of no return, because all my best friends from school that I had played football with were, continuing on in the Marine Corps. And we had always talked that we wanted to pursue a career in MARSOC, Marine Corps Special Operations, which majority of my best friends who are still in are going down that road now. And I had this this fire still burning in me to play ball, and it never really went out at any point. But it wasn't until that big decision, that career designation board, where I had to make the decision whether I was going to continue on or I was going to get out. And I just couldn't overcome the possibility of me looking back on my life and saying I didn't give it a try. And so that's when I just decided I declined career designation, and I put all my chips in one basket and started working towards getting in football shape again.
I mean, we want to talk about inner belief and motivation. You love these stories, right? Because sometimes you don't know if it's going to work out or not. But the fact that you had the courage to go out and do that, it's just a really testament to obviously how you were raised, having people around that have been through this experience before. But that is it's one thing to change jobs, right? It's another thing to go into the most competitive job market maybe in the United States and say, hey, I haven't been doing this for a couple of years, but I know I got what it takes. So then from there, I remember you went and saw Devlin, the fullback up in New England, right? And he kind of put you through the paces, and then just as much as you can you kind of give us that quick process of what you did to kind of prove that you look like an opportunity for an NFL team?
Yeah, so I got to rewind the clock a bit to kind of put everything into context. And after I had finished my finals my senior year at the Naval Academy, I was on what they called I forget what leave we were on, but it was between finals and commissioning week. There's you get a week of leave or however many days it ends up being. So I got lucky and I was on leave when the Houston Texans wanted to bring me out to rookie minicamp. So I went out to rookie minicamp with the Houston Texans, and I was playing linebacker, which is also a new position because I played defensive end in college. But I learned very quickly that the NFL is not a place to learn a new position. It is a place to perform and be a contributor, or else they'll find someone who is.
Who's the linebacker there?
Back then it was Mike Vrabel.
Was it Vrabel?
Yeah.
He's a badass, but he's tough. He's tough, man.
Oh yeah, he's awesome though. He was cool with me. Always texting him questions and hey coach, can you come in a little early and go over this with me? Or like, hey, what are you doing? At the end of the day, like, can we go over some practice stuff, whatever? And he never didn't have time or didn't make time. So that was really cool.
That's why he's one of the best head coaches in the league. That's why his ascension, because honestly, that speaks to why his ascension was so fast in the NFL. It's like not just because he was, Super Bowl champ and everything else, because like he no doubt gives a shit about developing his players. Like that was his number 1, 2, and 3 priority. And when you do that, like when you make that commitment to another human, like good things happen, right?
Totally. Awesome. And he's also the guy who holds the bag in practice and gets after, like gets down in the trenches. He's not just up on the whiteboard and barking at people. And then another big takeaway from rookie minicamp was, hey, I'm not going to play linebacker because I'm not going to figure it out fast enough as an undrafted free agent, long shot. But I know that athletically, like I belong on this field. So I walked away from, I got cut, and then that was it. And I went to back to the Naval Academy and commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. And then, went to the basic school down in Quantico, Virginia. Got my MOS, which is your military occupational specialty, where I'm an 0302 infantry officer. Did my training over there at infantry officers course, and then stationed out at Camp Pendleton, and then kind of, did all my time out in Camp Pendleton, which now we're catching up to the career designation board. And
hey, just a quick question. So you go, because you're a certain weight, right? When you go out to camp,
right.
to the camp, you're probably what, 240, 245, something like that?
Yeah, I think I was like 240.
Yeah. And so then what do you got to wear for the next 5 years? Like, can you keep weight on? I mean, you were training one way or the other, but could you keep that kind of weight on?
No. So I'm natural. My natural body weight, I found through my 5 years in the Marine Corps, was like 235.
Oh, you're good.
Like 230, 235 range is where I kind of settled. But there were big time fluctuations. Like if I didn't have access to, a traditional gym weight room setup for long periods of time, I'm losing a lot of weight. If I'm not eating good food, like we're eating MREs and not sleeping and all that, like I'm definitely.
Okay, so here, I gotta stop you, right? Because here's what you just said, and here's what everybody else hears, right? Because you and I are athletes, right? So
yeah.
You said your natural weight's about 235, right? And that's the way I look at things. I'm like, I'll tell my wife, like, no, I should be weighing about 245. That's what I should weigh. But if you're not, but everybody else looks at it like, well, if you're not working out and you're not eating like 5,000 calories a day, see, I'm just saying the perception of what's real to you and what's real to everybody else. They'll be like, no, man, you should be like 215, right? Because our reality is like, oh, we got to be big, got to be, you got to be strong, you got to be ready, you always got to be ready. So you're always like, that's part of your lifestyle, and that's kind of the point, right? That's part of why you could jump back in, because your lifestyle is like, no, I always train. That's just what I do. I train, I eat,
right?
I make sure I'm always kind of ready. I'm in this like best version of myself mode. I'm not trying to be what my average could look like, right? Anyway,
right.
So yeah, continue on. Sorry.
So yeah, the fluctuations from the different types of environments and training that we were doing, I think there was definitely a point where I was like 195 even. Just not a lot of sleep, not eating regular food, like we're eating MREs, meals ready to eat, and you're not properly hydrated, just like everything that you think about for optimum performance training in sports, like just do the opposite for weeks at a time, and then you'll end up losing a lot of weight. So, but when it wasn't as unpredictable and chaotic, and I did have access to a normal weight room or gym, I would stick around the 230, 235 range, and eating normal food and that kind of stuff. But so
you get to the boards.
Yeah, so we get to the career designation board, and that's when I kind of put my foot down and just commit, like, hey, and that was not easy, especially with my group of friends. Like, we were very close coming from the Naval Academy, and we had we didn't like make a promise or anything to each other, like kind of corny like that, but we all just we were doing the same thing, like we were
the same endpoint.
Yeah. And I just kind of had to break off, and I told my family, and my
What does your
best
brother say?
friends.
What does your brother say when you say, "Hey, man, this is what I'm going to do"? Because they're both in it. And they know how hard it is, right?
Yeah, well, they both supported me 100%. But I don't think they really heard me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, hey man, like,
Do you?
I I believe in you. Like I think that's awesome. Like, me, we'll help you with whatever and whatever you need. And they did, and they all, but they could probably tell me I'm so wrong about this, and that they did totally believe me from the get-go. But it just seems from my perspective that a large majority of the people that I told, like, hey, I'm getting out of the Marine Corps and I'm gonna go play in the NFL, are like, yeah, right on, but it's probably not gonna happen. Like, and then you'll
Right.
end up, figuring out whatever
Yeah.
job and
Because it's tough to
situation
go.
you're
Like
gonna be.
it'd be tough to go back, right? I mean, that's the hard thing about leaving. Like leaving the military, getting back in would be difficult, I suppose, or at least you get back in the position that you wanted to. So this is like you're shutting the door on a lot of opportunities there, right? You worked a long time. You think about you school for 5 years, in for
Mhm.
5 years. You spent a decade of your life dedicated to this, and it's now to shut
Yeah,
that door. Yeah, absolutely.
and yeah, so and kind of like what we were talking about earlier, you know, that just by saying that, hey, I'm gonna get out of the Marine Corps and go play in the NFL, like that doesn't mean anything. Um, what means something is every day from that day, you know, what are you doing to get to that point, right? So, I don't get to see my brothers very often, and I'm pretty much on this path by myself for a good, couple years. And it's like, hey, well, we're getting closer to when I'm getting out of the Marine Corps. And, it turns out like I have been doing stuff every single day. Like I have been attacking this the way that is required to even have a chance. Um, so as time progresses, people are like, hey, I'm not just like supporting you. Now I'm like, I believe in you because you're showing me that you're not just like sticking your hand up in the air saying like I want to play in the NFL. You're like, no, you're swinging the hammer, chipping away, and now it's like for real. So I'm about 6 months out of my Marine Corps career. Um, I was in close discussions with my agent out of Orange County, California, and I was like, hey man, and he has been on board. My agent is awesome. His name's Chase Callahan and Rep One Sports, and he's supported me uh, from the beginning. When I even mentioned it to him years ago, and he was like, "Whatever you need to do, whatever we can provide, like let's make it happen." So that was huge for me as well. Um, and he did provide that, and I got a lot of good training in with the 2020 rookie class from Rep One Sports. And the plan was to send me to San Diego State's Pro Day um, back in March of 2020. So I was like training real hard, getting ready for that because that was going to be my first opportunity with exposure to, NFL coaches, GMs, front office folk,
At this
scouts,
at this point, what position are you looking to get in at?
fullback 100%.
Yeah,
Sorry, I kind of skipped over that.
that's all right.
The the fullback, the 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 idea for me to play fullback happened. I was in Houston when my brother was with the Texans. We were at JJ Watt's softball. Um, charity softball game, and they had a teammate named Jay Prosh. He's a fullback out of Auburn, and he's a big dude. You know, he was a good player, and I just remember thinking like, you know, I think I can do what this guy's doing. Like, it's not that. And this is kind of like my young, not understanding of what it is to be an NFL player mindset talking to me, but I'm like, you know what? I think this fullback thing it's not that complicated. It's not. It's really just about, you know, going out there and just understanding your role and just being a tough dude and putting it on the line for the team. And I can do that. Like, that sounds like
Sure.
the job for me, you know. And obviously, you know, got to contribute on special teams and just be a leader on the team. And I was like, you know what, that's it. Like, that's my in. And I started doing some research, and it turns out a lot of the guys playing fullback in the NFL did not play fullback in college. Like, they moved from a defensive player, a tight end, linebacker, you know, whatever. And I was like, okay, like somewhere along the way, somebody said, hey, we think you'll be a good fullback. And I'm like, I'm no different than that. You know, like I was a good player as a defensive end. I'm not big enough to play defensive end. No team, like I'm not, like we talked about earlier with the linebacker thing, like I'm not going to pick this up quickly enough to contribute and be that guy as an undrafted free agent. But the fullback thing is like, it's a little more intriguing, and I think it's a little more doable. So I put everything into that, and the name that like really solidified it for me was James Devlin, because you know I was researching every fullback, and I was, you know, New England Patriots fullback James Devlin, and this James went to Brown. Was it Brown?
Yeah.
He's gonna kill me for this. Yeah. Yeah. So James went to Brown, and he played defensive end. And after his college career was over, he had no opportunities to play in the NFL, and he played in some arena leagues and some, you know, some semi-pro leagues, and the one team that he played for was the Oklahoma City Yard Dogs. And I was like, man, this dude has dragged himself all over the country to play this game, and then finally gets his shot as a practice squatter on Cincinnati, and then from Cincinnati ends up in New England, and then New England, you know, another year on the practice squad, and now he's active roster, Pro Bowl fullback. Like, you know, I'm not saying like that's the path I'm going to take, and like you know, I'm gonna figure out all these different avenues, and then I'm gonna end up as a Pro Bowler. But the similarity is this dude had a path that was just from the beginning of it. If you were betting on it, like, you're not going to take that bet, right? Because he's just not going to make it, right? But it just takes that kind of dude who says, no, I don't really care what the statistics or what the odds are. Like, I'm going to do this because this is what I want to do. And I could just by reading kind of where his background, I was able to put that together about him as a person. And so now I don't know James at all. Like, that's just me reading on him on the internet, right? So it's kind of just like a little bit of an inspiration, like whatever.
Little affirmation for what you're trying to do, clearly,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
totally.
the other thing it kind of shows you is like, kind of a part of a bigger picture we'll talk about later, but you talk about the Patriot way, you talk about do your job, right? The whole mentality of the way that they go about their business. Like how many, we're just talking about Vrabel, how many guys that weren't quite the right fit other places go there and not only like are successful, but win Super Bowls or Pro Bowlers, like are got household names. Like I knew when we first met, like I wanted to see Devlin. I was like, that guy, I love watching that guy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's awesome. But go ahead.
yeah. So that kind of solidified the fullback thing for me, and then told my agent like, hey, I want to play fullback, and he's like, okay, yeah, I think we can pull this off. Like, we got to get you back in full football shape. So started, really kind of getting into that specific style of training, and was getting ready for San Diego State's pro day, and COVID-19 showed up shortly, or it had been around since earlier in the year, but it really shut us down in March. The U.S. and the rest of the world, but basically all pro days were done. There was just nothing happening, so it was kind of like, damn, that sucks. It's not like the end all be all, but for me it was a big thing because this is my first opportunity to perform in front of these NFL front office people, and
That's a date you had circled on the calendar, man. Now you got to pivot. Yeah, it's difficult.
yeah, and you can say how not important, or the combine stuff doesn't translate
That's
to the
only
field.
true though if you're a high draft pick.
Right.
For guys that are trying to make a roster, it's very, very important, right? Because
And
you got to see character, you got to see how they move, you got to see if they have any football
yeah,
intelligence. I mean, that's just for the big ESPN top 10 guys. You know what I mean?
yeah. And for me too, I think it meant even more because it's like, oh, this guy hasn't played football in 5 years. Like, what's his 40? Like, does he pass any physical test? Like, and it was like, well, actually, like, he kind of, like, it was my first opportunity to like turn some heads. Like, whoa, he's actually kind of legit, So I was working really hard trying to get all my numbers and times and stuff as as fast and as strong as possible. And
so what did you do when it didn't work?
I was doing that. I did really well, or I was prepared to do really well, and it got canceled. Pro day was done, so I was like, it was a big bummer for me. But that's when like the creativity, like unorthodox stuff started to happen, because it's like, hey, we're not just gonna let 2020 pandemic say, thanks for showing up, better luck next year, because
Dream's over. Yeah.
this is it. I'm getting out of the Marine Corps in August of this year, and I don't have a backup plan. I do not have a plan B.
Innovation comes when desperation comes, right?
Yeah. So that we filmed like a little YouTube video pro day workout and sent that around to all the teams. And some teams, responded like, well, okay, this is worth noting, but no one was willing to sign me based on that video. And it was like, okay, well, I'm still doing what I'm doing on a daily basis to make sure I'm ready to go physically for when my opportunity comes. But now I'm missing out on some valuable, off-season time, which is all the kids who have gotten drafted or signed in free agency in 2020 are now on Zoom with their teams, like going over the playbook. They're giving them specific workouts to do in preparation for camp. And I'm not getting that. And I need that desperately because I'm playing a new position and I need to learn and I need to close that gap. So in my mind, I'm aware of this and I need to address it because each day that goes on where I don't know what I'm doing is another day where it's becoming more unlikely that I'm going to make it happen.
Right.
So basically what I needed to do is I needed to learn how to play fullback because, playing fullback isn't running a decent 40 or having good agility or being strong on the bench press. It's getting your hand in your 3-point stance, identifying your insert point in your assignment, and making a good block.
Yep.
So that's when I hit up my teammate from Navy and also my teammate from New England, Joe Cardona, because the news that James Devlin had just retired from the NFL came out. And I said, hey, I think James would – I'm thinking to myself, I think James would be interested or at least entertain the idea of training with me and kind of sharing some knowledge. So I hit up Joe and, I told Joe what I was trying to do. And Joe had kind of been aware throughout this process because, him and I are very close. But
so Joe's a long snapper. For those who don't know, he's a long snapper for the New England Patriots, Naval Academy grad.
Correct. Sorry about that. So I kind of firmed things up with Joe, like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing. I think James can help me out a lot with this whole process. If you think he'd be willing, like, send me his contact info. I'm gonna hit him up and see what we can make out of it. So Joe's like, absolutely, bro. Here's James's number. I already talked to him. He said he can't wait to talk to you, whatever. So I just hit up James out of the blue, and he's like, I give him my whole backstory, and he's like, hey, brother, if you come out to New Jersey, I'll train with you. So I booked a flight like 2 days later.
That's awesome.
And I went out to Jersey. I was out there for like 10 days training with James. And I was staying, my one of my best friends from the Naval Academy is from New Jersey as well. They live about 2.5 hours from where James was at. And I was driving from their house to meet James every morning at 6 a.m. And
I love it. Hey man, you're doing whatever you got to do.
Exactly. I'm not gonna be like, hey James, like, I gotta drive 2.5 hours, bro.
House, right? Yeah.
Can you can we like work out a little bit later? I'm like, okay, cool.
Dude, that's so funny because like I would literally have high school kids that would be like, I'm tired, can we work out later? But like it's the difference, right? That's the all of this stuff, like all of that behavior. Like I just want to put this in the people who are listening to this, like young athletes especially, like get inside the mind of somebody who wants it desperately. Like this is what it sounds like. So sorry for interrupting. Keep going.
No, absolutely. So I'm driving, like 2.5 hours to meet James every morning, and there's a town nearby that called Hamilton. Like there's like 3 different Hamiltons in New Jersey, and one of them's 20 minutes away from where James is at, and the other's 2.5 hours, and the other's wherever. And I just told him, I'm in Hamilton. He's like, oh, cool. Like you're right down the road. And I'm like, I'm not even gonna go there because I don't want to throw him off because he is a husband, he's a father, he's got 3 kids. Like he gets in early. He gets his workout on so he can go be dad for the rest of the day.
Right.
And I'm not here to like interrupt that at all because he's going out of his way to help me out. So One day on my way there, I'm going on like a 1-lane highway, and there's like a tree that fell over, and there's no way around the tree. So I'm like, we're waiting for this tree to get pulled off the road. It's like, 4:30 in the morning, and things aren't necessarily moving very fast at 4:30 in the morning anywhere on the planet. So it takes a while for that tree to get cleared off the street, and I'm late. And that's when James finds out that, I've been waking up super early just to get there at 6 so we can train. And I was like, he felt bad. And I was like, dude, like, honestly, I didn't even want to tell you because I just didn't want to go there with you, like, I don't care at all. Like, this is where I want to be. This is where I'm at. Like, let's just do it. So, but for James to just welcome me and take me under his wing for those 10 days was the biggest, most impactful thing that happened for me in my journey so far in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure.
In, trying to get my foot in the door in the NFL, because he allowed me, before I met James, my fullback knowledge was very minimal.
Right.
After I left with New Jersey training with James, I felt like I could go and play the position.
Yeah.
So what that allowed me to do was have the confidence to walk into camp and like, hey, get in the huddle, and we're running 34 lead, or we're running 38 boss, or we're running Bob, like, and instead of like needing to learn my ABCs or count to 10 and like, hey, what's that? Like, and ask a million questions, like, I already know where to go. And that was huge for me, because I'm such a long shot as it is to make this team, that I need to be able to jump in and go right now, but to be that contributor that we talked about earlier, because I already know from my experience at rookie minicamp that if you aren't able to do that from the get-go as an undrafted free agent, especially if you haven't played in 5 years, like, you're going to get cut.
My best friend in the world got drafted by the Patriots, I want to say like 2004, 2005. He was drafted like 5th round. He's a good player. And he had injury problems and everything, but I remember he'll never forget, like, he went to a Patriots minicamp. I forgot who his coach was at the time. He went to Patriots minicamp, and like he screwed up like the first 2 plays or something, like on a check or read or something, and he was playing. They moved him to inside backer from outside backer, so it's like basically a new position for him, right? So he screwed up like 2 plays, and he's like, I literally never saw the field again. Like, it was it.
Yeah.
It's like we would say, and like offensive lineman would say, you're one bad set from the bus stop, like. And the Patriots, man, you're one bad check from the bus stop. Like, it's just how it is. It's just an intense environment there for sure.
100%.
And you're not even there yet, I know, but I'm just giving that example of what you have to deal with as an NFL player.
Yeah, so you just need to, you just have to be able to go out there and do your job. And if you can if you know what you're doing, and you can line up and you can execute, you're going to have a chance, because as simple as it seems, like, things move so fast and it gets so chaotic for guys who, aren't ready for that, level of intensity, that they can't hang. And
that's a good point, because if you think about, like, you think about your background, right? You think about all the things you've had to go through, right? You're a wartime Marine. Naval Academy is no cakewalk. Like, we were both there, and you've been around some really high level athletes now that have played at big time schools, Ohio State, Texas. The experience is different, to say the least, right? When you guys start sharing stories about what college looked like totally different. So one thing that, and I know Bill Belichick's a huge academy guy, right? His father coached there. He's a huge fan. I mean, that's probably where I got picked up. Eventually, there's a backstory there, but the fact that those like NFL owners in general, NFL coaches know that you have the background that you do. We talked about this before. Even though you might have a deficit with experience, 5 years experience in football, your life experience now has actually put you in a very unique position to be able to handle a lot of the adversity and stress that comes along with being an NFL player. Because you start, when you want to talk about, without getting kind of too serious about it, you want to talk about real stress. The NFL stress is not real stress. Like Marine Corps stuff, that's real stress, right? It's different. It's different.
Yeah.
So you go to see Dev. You come back. What's the next step for you?
Yeah. So I go see James, and every day James would give me a few plays from his memory, and I would go back each night and I would write those in my notes, and I would study, and then I would come back the next day and James would like kind of quiz me on what he had just taught me. And then that we repeated that process for the duration of my trip in New Jersey. So I left New Jersey with my notebook of my James Devlin training notes. So I just implemented that into my daily training program, where I'm obviously lifting and running and doing my conditioning and metabolic stuff, but now I have this playbook, like de facto playbook, that I'm repping it out. I'm studying the angles. I'm setting up trash cans to act like they're my offensive lineman, and identifying the insert point and just running these plays, and
using technique. Really, now you've added, so like the key component, right? You're doing all the physical preparation. You're kind of doing the work that you know how to do, right? Of that conscious competence, right? But now all the stuff that you didn't know about, right? You add that to your day, and that's a good lesson for athletes. It's not about getting 1 hour once a week or something, doing like trash cans, right? It's really about, hey, can you take care of a little bite every day to make it more manageable, right? Like simple stuff, small bites, easy. It allows you to develop at a much, much higher rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And now, like I was talking about, or like we had discussed earlier, this is when the unorthodox and creativity needs to be applied, because we're approaching, August, and camp is days from starting, and my agent doesn't have anything going on for me. And there's not a lot of opportunities. Some teams are like, yeah, we got him as like emergency guy or whatever. And, like I said, I don't have a plan B. Like there is no backup. So camp's about to start, and I'm not in camp. Like this is a year. This is looking like it's going to be a year wasted, and I don't get an opportunity. So, I don't have a massive network of friends, but I do have a very solid network of very good friends and people that I trust, and I value their friendship and their opinions on whatever it is I'm doing in life. And I would think that they would say the same about me. And Tyson Stahl has always been a big mentor for me, and Tyson's one of the guys who's 100% believed in me from the moment I told him that this is what I'm going to do. So I've always been talking to him, and Tyson told me about you, and he said, just call him, just ask him what he thinks, just like. And Tyson's never steered me in the wrong direction before, so that's what I did. So I took Tyson's advice, and for those who don't know Tyson, Tyson's a former Navy football player and Marine infantry officer, and then went on to serve in the Marine Corps Special Operations. And he got out a couple years ago, and he's doing a lot of things. But one of the coolest things that he's doing, he's in a band with some former Special Operations guys, and I was like, man, that's badass. Like, these guys, they got out and they're like, hey, let's just go and start a rock band, and they're really good. And that's cool. Like, that's inspiration for me, like, I'm not a musician, or I'm not, gonna be in a rock band, but like, hey, look what he's doing when he got out, like, that's something that they really wanted to do, and it's not easily done, especially if you want to do it at a high level, but they did it and they figure out how to do it. So like, that kind of applies for me too. So Tyson's really excited to have these conversations with me and see where I'm at with the whole, journey of getting to the NFL. So he points me in your direction, and I reach out to you, and I show up at your son's soccer practice over there, and we're in Carlsbad, right?
That's right.
Yeah, we're at like a recreational field in Carlsbad, and that was the first time I met you, and I showed you my little pro day workout that we spoke about earlier, and you were like, okay, like, I think this is legit, like, this will help you, and you kind of pitched the idea of addressing the red flag, and the red flag is being that teams don't know that I know what I'm doing as a fullback.
Yeah.
They see this video that, oh, he's obviously big, strong, fast, whatever, but that doesn't just like allow you to succeed on the football field.
Does he have any contextual intelligence, right?
Right.
Contextual intelligence, yeah.
And you're like, well, and that's when I said, well, hey, I do, because I went to New Jersey and I'm trained with James Devlin, and James taught me, everything he could teach me within 10 days. And you're like, well, that needs to be communicated to these teams. So I was like, all right, how do we do that? And basically created another video where it was like, hey, this is I'm Paul Quessenberry, 2020 free agent fullback. Here's what I know. And I broke down a series of standard run plays that any two-back offense in the NFL is going to use, and just talk football, X's and O's, and broke it down on a whiteboard, and then went out on the field, and my best friend Jimmy we both wore helmets and just collided into each other for a series of drills, and sent that out and got to my agent and sent it all over the place. And New England, after they saw that video, they were like, okay, like, let's get this dude out here for a workout. And it was August 21st, I believe. Yeah, it was August 21st. So August 22nd was my last day on active duty.
Mm-hmm.
And August 21st is when I got the call from New England that they were going to fly me out for a workout.
That's awesome.
And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, out of all the things that you pulled off, like, by the freaking slightest margin, this might be the craziest one.
Right.
And yeah, so I flew out from I was actually in San Francisco, not San Francisco, I was in Northern California, where my girlfriend's family is from, so San Francisco area, and I was training at the local high school field. I was working out when I got the call that morning during my workout that I was going to New England. So I was like, hey, I called my girlfriend. I was like, hey, baby, got a call from the Patriots. Like, I'm flying out tomorrow morning first thing. Like, I'm sorry we don't get to hang out with her family for the rest of the week, but I gotta go. And she's all happy and
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, then I flew out to New England, did my tryout, and then they signed me the next day. And for the rest of camp, which was like 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
I was just out there and getting after it every day.
Hey, tell me this then. Tell me when you go to, so everybody know, like we talked about before, the Patriot way, do your job. Like they had so much success there that it's almost like common vernacular in the English language, like an American language, right? So what is something, I guess, what's the one thing that stands out for you? And I know you haven't been in their camp, so just give me something about being in that environment that you're like, this has got to be different. Like they got to be doing something different here than everybody else.
I would say that, I mean, depends on how you look at it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a team first mentality. And whether you want to call that selflessness, whether you want to call it discipline, whether depending on what side of the prism you're looking at the organization from, will determine that. But I would just say that all kind of encompasses the team first mentality, and any sort of sacrifice that is needed to be made to make sure that the team is put in the best position to win is what everyone's going to do. And that's from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's not like a player's only thing or a coach's only thing.
Right.
Or it's like, hey, you're a part, like everyone here is a part of this team. And this is how we do it. And the people, they buy in, and I think, that is something that is not easy to do in any organization, at doing, anything.
Any
It's
business,
very,
really, right? Anything
exactly.
that's dealing with human capital. We were talking
Right.
about this. One of my buddies. I'm gonna do a video on this soon. One of my buddies asked me, like, how do you turn around an organization? You walk into the building day one. How do you turn around a football franchise, university, pro, whatever? And you can't just use the military model, right? You can't just like break down the individual and rebuild them as a team. Because
Right.
right now that's tough, because this group, your generation there's so much individuality. There's so much brand building. Like all those words are thrown around. Quite frankly, it just wasn't thrown out when I was playing. So how do you do that, right? And what the general answer is, like my general answer is always, hey, you invest as much as you can into the players. Like you get the players in a position where they understand this is the position you're going to have the most success, and I'm going to teach you how to have success. I'm going to teach you how to win your matchups so that you're getting what you want in the context of what we want, right? So everybody wins. And I think, to do that, it all sounds good, right? But to actually be able to do that, to be able to persevere and understand that takes time. You might not have immediate success because you're kind of grooming people for an outcome down the road, right? Where they have to trust that you have their best interests at heart. And obviously he has, from the top down, they have the track record to show that. But you just see how, I've been into other franchises that don't have the luxury of time, right? They don't have the luxury of time. And so it's like, we're trying to always kind of put our finger in the dike as opposed to fix the foundational problems, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Do you see, like, can we just talk about kind of your first year there, and what I'm really curious about, I think, is the parallels that you see, and I think you really just spoke on probably the most important one, is the parallels between your time in the Marine Corps, your time at the Academy, the way that you view your teammates and your brothers, and how the Patriots, or how you see the NFL operating at their highest levels.
Yeah. So I would say, like, kind of going back to my Naval Academy experience and getting the opportunity to go to rookie mini camp with the Texans, I don't think I was prepared to be a professional football player at that moment upon graduation because, you know, I, the Naval Academy is a tremendous place. You learn so much about so many things that you have no idea you're learning about as far as, on the leadership spectrum. But like I said, you're not really aware of it at the time, especially when you're someone like me who's a little bit in over their head, who's not qualified
You're in good company, my friend. You're in good company.
who's not necessarily qualified academically to be there. But I would say when I got to infantry officers course and I started going through that training, and I really started to kind of progress or like evolve into like the best version of myself that I could be. And then when I got to my first unit and took over for, a platoon, a rifle platoon, that was a big deal for me. And things got really real because it's no longer just like you kind of navigating through the Naval Academy and playing football and yeah, you're like you have that team experience obviously being a Navy football player, but it's a little bit different when you stand in front of a group of guys and like what you say is what they're gonna do. And you're in charge because of the rank that you hold, and it's like you just kind of start to think about things like because I was good at football in high school and I got a scholarship to the Naval Academy, that gave me a commission in the Marine Corps. And here I stand in front of these young Marines and I'm in charge of what could be life and death situations for them. And I'm like, man, these Marines are no different than I am. I just ended up on a path that put me in front of them versus them listening to me. And I kind of looked at my journey through my different leadership opportunities within the Marine Corps through that lens as much as possible, because a lot of people can get carried away with their power position or their authority position. And I always saw that was never a good way, and you never got the best results out of your team or your unit or your platoon through those methods. And like you were saying, you want to invest in these guys, you want them to wake up and be happy with where they're at. You want them to work their ass off and do incredible things for you and for each other.
Right.
And that is not an easy thing to achieve, that needs to be created, and those expectations need to be, clearly illustrated, and you need to help facilitate each piece of the puzzle to meet in each individual expectation so that the unit operates to the desired end state, right?
Yeah.
And
I call that being committed to the cause, right? Committed to the cause. Yeah, for sure.
And I just can't speak highly enough about the Marines that I was fortunate to serve, because without them, buying into the way our platoon did things, I don't think I would have had developed a way of seeing things, a way of thinking through things that the way I do now. And because of that process and because of the way they attacked everything on a daily basis, I was able to learn these things and apply them in my own personal journey of trying to play football in the NFL. And, you know, without that, I'm not here talking to you. You know what I mean?
You touched on three things there, dude. I just like to highlight. So you said in order to get these guys to commit to your cause, you have to set high expectations. You have to communicate those expectations with like some sort of consistent languaging, right? And you have to let those players let those Marines know that you're invested in them.
Right.
Right. And through your journey, right, I think what's so awesome, because your whole life experience leads you to this point where you're comfortable enough, you have confidence in who you are as a leader, who you are as a man, the experiences that you've had, that you can walk away and take this jump, right? And that confidence, really, you think about, confidence is like, it's almost like a foundational skill, right? It's almost like a foundational skill, and that you have to build that up through your life experience. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like resilience, just like any other skill you have to build up. Like a lot of people come in naturally confident. A lot of young male athletes have more confidence than skill. We always joke about that, right? These guys are way too confident; they're not good enough, right?
Right.
But building up that confidence, especially in the environment you were in, you think about how that enhances your mindset, your resiliency, your emotional control, right? Like the drive to go do what you're really passionate about doing. Like that's all a function of being in charge of this group of men and women that you essentially, you're making these calls that are life and death sometimes. And that is like that commitment to somebody else. That's what I think is like, I wish we could take that, obviously not in maybe an intensive environment, but I wish we could take that lesson and just show that the commitment to other people, the commitment to serve those under you, the commitment to serve those people around you, and what that does for you as a human being, like it's just so powerful, man. It's just awesome. It's just such an awesome way to kind of carry out your life goals.
100%. And it reshapes the way you see a lot of things in the world, and I don't know, I just feel like once you've been exposed to that, it's so strong and it's so powerful, and it has such a profound impact on your life and who you want to be and who you want to continue to grow to be, that it will always kind of be like a guiding light for you, and no matter what it is, how ridiculous or how insane people may think your aspirations are, or your goals are unattainable, like I feel like you just have to bet on you, and if you want it bad enough, you'll figure out a way, and you'll get with the people who you trust and are going to tell you what you need to hear, and whether it's good or bad, and they're going to provide you with the tools and the resources to make it happen. And I just couldn't be more thankful and just appreciative of all the Marines that I got to serve with throughout my whole journey, because I 100% would not be talking to you without those experiences and those guys.
Yeah, certainly, man. And look, we know that this part of your journey is young, right? You're still in the infancy of it. and there's a lot of work to go. And hopefully in 10 years from now, you look back and like, best decision you ever made, right? One way or another, best decision you ever made, right? Is just like taking that leap, because you never know what's behind door number 2. Like, you just never know unless you try to open it. And that's one of the hardest lessons to learn, especially as you get older. It's always, you get more committed. You got family, you got kids, you got a job, you got a paycheck. It's like you never know what's behind door number 2, man. Sometimes you just got to grab tight and just go for it. And
exactly.
I wanted you to be on here, and I know that you're still in the early stages of your football career, but I'm just generally so impressed that when you called me up and were like, "Hey, this is the deal. I'm jumping out of the Marine Corps after 10 years in the military. I'm jumping out and I'm going to go play in the NFL. I got 2 brothers that played in the NFL. I know I can do it." And it was like, but I'm not going to argue with you. Yeah, I was like, you know what I mean? It was like you were just such as a matter of fact that there was no point in doing anything else but completely supporting you. I just knew you had the strength and conviction, and you have the background to demonstrate that anything is possible if you put your mind to it, right? And so
I appreciate you believing in me, man, because
for sure,
like I said, you played a big role in making this all happen. So
the thing that I always say this, man, you picked the right position too, right? Football is so crazy. I tell my kids this. I tell anybody who's like a young athlete trying to figure out multi-sports, or should I specialize or whatever. Football is such a unique sport because there's really only, if you think about what positions in football do you have to start playing at a young age? Maybe quarterback, maybe. Yeah. Every other position in that sport, and you're taking it to the extreme, no question, right? But every other position in that sport, you can pretty much kind of figure out in a really, really quick amount of time, like short amount of time. If you've just got a little bit of shit to you, and you kind of meet the physical hurdles, you're willing to take a little pain or dish out a little pain. Like, you got to remember what people don't know, and I don't know how it is with Coach Ken, but like when I was at the Naval Academy, our practices were so hard because we were all so happy to not be in Bancroft Hall. Yeah. Our practices were so hard that literally, they talk about, being mentally tough. And one of the ways to be mentally tough is, practicing harder than game day. I promise you our practices are harder than game day. And so when I got to the league, I was like, and now it's way different because you guys, in the NFL, they don't have as many padded practices. It doesn't go as hard. But when I showed up, I remember the first day, I was joking about this with a guy yesterday. First day, they put me on a practice team, like kickoff return. Bro, I laid somebody out. And then the guy tried to fight me. I laid him out again. You know what I mean? And it was just, and I wasn't not a tough guy, but that's just how we practiced.
Right.
You know what I mean? So once you start looking around, you're like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. Like, if you're going to let me in the building, I can do this, right? Because people aren't willing to work hard anymore. We can work hard. You get that kind of background, you have that kind of training. One thing that is for certain is if you can find a way to do it, it's going to get done.
Right.
And that's what's awesome, man. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you one more question, just because you do have 2 brothers that are in the NFL, and that's pretty unique, right? So I think your brother Scott went to UCLA, and now is he still with the Chargers?
He is.
And then your brother David is with the Titans, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Sorry I put that story too far ahead, but so David just started like the last 3 regular season games, got to start in the playoffs at left tackle.
He started the last 7 years or 7 games. Sorry.
He played 7? Oh my!
He played 7.
So Tyler Lewan, who's like an all-pro guy, got hurt.
Yeah.
He stepped in, and they've just they haven't missed a beat, man. It's been awesome to watch because he's been in the league for a little while, and to get this shot in this environment and have Derrick Henry run for 2,000, unbelievable, man. You got to be just so proud of all these guys, right? As proud they are of you.
Oh, absolutely. Both of them have had incredible journeys. Scotty started pretty much the whole year last year at center for the Chargers, and played really well for them. And then this year they kind of got some guys back from injuries and stuff, and he's been in the mix. But you know, he's still fighting his way to crack in that starting lineup, and
Mhm.
I'm sure, you know, it's only a matter of time before he does. And then my older brother, kind of same thing. He's been in the league. This is his 8th season, and that opportunity has for him to get on the field uh, very rarely presented itself for him throughout his entire career. And then this year, it all kind of came together, and he had, you know, he was the 3rd string tackle. Taylor Lewan went down, and then Ty Sambrillo came in to back up Taylor, and then Ty went down, and you know, hey, 3rd string tackle, you're up. We're a playoff hopeful team. Like, let's go win. Let's go win games, and let's make the playoffs, and let's make a run. And you know, a lot of teams in that situation, their season, you know, might as well be over,
Right.
because they're not going to be able to rely on the 3rd guy to continue to play at the same exact level. Like, they're not going to skip a beat. And my brother, just it's just a testament to him, and you know, his commitment and his approach on a daily basis to be ready to fill that void at the level of a professional. And when the opportunity came, he, you know, delivered, and Derrick Henry was able to rush for 2,000 yards. And you know, it's not all because of him, but like he was a big piece of that entire unit's success. And you know, they made the playoffs, and he played good football for them and helped them win football games. So that was huge to just see all that go down, and I'm super proud of him and Scotty, and you know, both my brothers. So
Man, I'll tell you what,
yeah,
I can't imagine, like, first of all, the rough house that must have gone on back in the day, but like, there's going to be a time, like 20 years from now, when you guys are all sitting around watching your kids and you're all done with it, and you'd be sitting and like, man, we all played in the NFL at the same time. Like, that's nuts.
yeah,
Like, you know, I mean, I don't have, I mean, I think I had one player in my high school team have a cup of coffee in the NFL, like a game or two, maybe preseason game. In my whole high
yeah,
school team, like since I was there, right? You got 3 people on the same roof.
yeah,
That's amazing. That really is amazing. That's so cool. That's so cool. What an
yeah.
experience to share with
Thanks,
your family.
thanks, mom and dad, for
Yeah,
all
right.
the good food growing up.
Yeah, good food and boxing gloves or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
They must have just thrown you out back and said, "Last one in doesn't eat."
Yeah, just
Right?
mom scream at us, get out of the house. I don't want to see you till dark.
Listen, hey, honestly, I really appreciate you coming on, and I can't tell you again. I just want to say I really can't tell you how just happy I am that you're on this journey and that you took that leap, and then hopefully, you know, my whole thing with bringing these with bringing you on today was just I want people to know that you just want people to know that it's possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're not where you want to be yet. I get that, but to put yourself on that path and to go out there and work for it and to believe in yourself, to have that confidence, to have that resiliency, and the way that you got it and the journey that you went on, I just think it's awesome stuff, man. So I wanted to highlight it because you certainly are an example of to anybody out there who's trying to make a leap in football or any other walk of life, right? This is the kind of story that people need to hear. So, hey, thank you so much for being on, brother.
Absolutely appreciate you having me on, and appreciate you playing a big role in this whole journey for me.
Yeah, man.